Part of the idea with this presentation was our appointment scheduling is pretty neat. There's some really interesting features in there, and I think that more of our customers should be using it because it does save a lot of time. When I first came over to ActiveDEMAND, I didn't really think I would use it that much because I was old school. I'll call the customer and that's more customer centric. I'll call them up and then we'll set up the appointment. But a lot of times when you call them, you can't reach them. And then I would send an email and I would say, okay, well, here's 3 different times where we could do this meeting. And sometimes they would reply with one of those times really quickly, and that was fine. And other times they would take a day or 2 to get back to me. And if they did that, sometimes those dates got booked, those times got booked. So there was a couple of real issues with how I did appointment scheduling manually before that automatic appointment scheduling handles really nicely. So we're going to kind of cover why use appointment scheduling, which customers specifically it's really great for, some of the requirements around setting up a single appointment scheduler just for yourself, and then planning and executing a large deployment, copying and pasting all those single appointment schedulers. The other thing that I just wanted to mention on this call, if any of you want to pitch this to management, or if you're an agency and you want to pitch this to a client, just send us an email and we'd be happy to share this deck with you. If you want to pull some slides out just to use to talk to the customer or talk to your management and get them used to the idea, we'd be happy to help with that. So just first, why appointment scheduling? One of the things I mentioned there was just like trying to call a customer, they call you back. That phone tag thing is deadly to deals for salespeople. If you're a salesperson, you're trying to call a customer and you have to play phone tag for a week. Sometimes you get a hold of them and you find out that they bought from someone else, and that hurts because it's very random. It kind of feels like you just rolled the dice. You couldn't get them on the phone, and now you lose just because of that, and that doesn't really seem fair. It also stops double booking. That was one thing that really hurt me, was having people try to claim meeting times that I offered to them after a significant delay, and then I found out that I was already double booked. So that's a pain in the butt as well. The other thing that it helps with is fewer missed appointments. Most people still, especially these days, use their calendar and they follow their calendar, but a couple of some customers, some managers just don't, and they forget about meetings that are in their calendar, or they need to be reminded of them. So having some automated reminders that are personalized goes a long way in making sure that people still attend those meetings. And then this one, especially nowadays, this is very handy, just auto handling the video conferencing part. If you've got built-in video conferencing with your calendaring, that's great. If you need to set up a GoToMeeting or a Zoom meeting, some people have no problem with that. Some people make some mistakes. And there's also data entry mistakes where people copy the wrong one, or they didn't copy the whole link, or maybe they sent it through Facebook and it added some crazy Facebook click ID stuff on it. There's lots of different places where manually entering this stuff can cause issues. And the last reason why you'd want to use appointment scheduling is that it allows for personalization. So if you can get that customer to book an appointment through ActiveDEMAND, then they're in the system. You can use the system for all this other stuff. You can personalize to them based on what they put into that appointment scheduler. You can track them. You can do all the other good stuff that ActiveDEMAND can allow you to do. So how are they used? The most popular one we see is just being used as individual schedulers for salespeople or customer-facing staff. That's a popular use case. A lot of salespeople, especially these days, will include a book a meeting with me link in their email signature, and that's a link to their special landing page that just has a link to their calendar, so that's really nice. It allows existing customers to self-book service work. So if you have existing customers and you would want them to self-book service and just have them book directly with service people, this could be a very handy way of doing that and avoiding a lot of the administration around it. Because appointment schedulers can be put directly on your website, they can use to publicly convert people as a lead. So people, if they self-book a needs assessment meeting or something like that, that's a lead, and we can convert that and send that through to sales as a lead. We can schedule internal team meetings. We can book the entire project team at once. And really, it's fantastic for a couple of other reasons. Salespeople, we've run across a couple of situations where salespeople have to go to new cities. They have to fully book those days out in those cities. It's handy for that. Busy executives who don't have an executive assistant but kind of need one. This is also handy for them because it builds it in for them. It does all the stuff that an executive assistant would do for them. Service work. And so there's some other just real pertinent examples. Real estate agents who need to organize show home viewings, fantastic for that. Appointment-based businesses like eye care, dentists, that kind of thing, also fantastic for those kind of businesses. So there are definitely some really good use cases for appointment scheduling that we need to consider. What does it look like? Well, this is an example of just a personal one. So this is my appointment scheduling page on ActiveDEMAND's website. People can go to this page. Now, this link isn't like publicized. Only I use it. Only I send it out to people because I don't want just randoms like booking meetings with me. So I will email this to people when I want them to book a meeting with me, or I'll also include it in my signature. People can choose the day, they can choose the time, the subject of what we're going to be talking about, and all that kind of stuff. And it's handy because it offers them more options to my calendar, and it offers a real-time, up-to-date view into my calendar. The other place we use it that we get fantastic results from is in demo booking. So if you book a demo with ActiveDEMAND, you are selecting in that calendar. Now, the interesting thing about this one, this actually gives you access to more than one person's calendar. This is offering a view into many people's calendars, and it books based on priority. So that's the way we wanted it. We wanted to have like our best demo givers giving the demos before other people. So it kind of goes in order of priority. If we wanted to level the load out, we could choose to do a round robin instead, but we prefer to just go by priority. It only books in one person's calendar, so that only one person actually has to give the demo in here. So again, the person selects the time in there. The other interesting thing to think about with these appointment schedulers is to use progressive profiling. So what I mean by that is use forms that go step-by-step, multi-page forms that give you a little bit more information about the prospect as they go along. Again, try not to put too many fields in there because that will cause more friction and more people will drop out. But where you can get really good information that will help you close the deal or help you better set up for the meeting, definitely include that. So you can see here the example that I've got is that we've got, I work for a marketing agency is one of the more important ones that we're asking for ActiveDEMAND. So next, let's talk a little bit about the requirements in building an appointment scheduler. Like what's the meat and potatoes in getting this? Again, this webinar is going to be very prescriptive. It's going to talk a lot about how I would set these things up, and that's so that you guys can build them out as you wish. So to build one of these things out, it connects in with Google's G Suite. That's the business version of Gmail and Calendar and that kind of thing, or Microsoft Office 365, which is their online suite. It will not connect with a self-hosted Exchange because it can't. There's not really a common way of hooking up to those things. But most people are on cloud for email and calendar, so we will be able to connect with those ones. And because we can connect with that, we don't offer up spots in someone's calendar that aren't available. We don't double book meetings in there. We can connect directly with GoToMeeting and Zoom. So if you're using either of those platforms for your video conferencing, we can include that information in with the meeting and dynamically build those video conferencing calls. And we can connect with like all kinds of weird stuff with Zapier. So if you have a CRM that's a little bit more custom or a little bit more off the wall rather than off the shelf, Zapier's got like a ton of different connections with this stuff, and we connect with Zapier, so that can make it easy as well to hook things up. Some must-haves when you're getting in. You have to have your basic branding and DNS settings in ActiveDEMAND complete. So that's all part of that wizard that you go through when you're first signing up. If you've had ActiveDEMAND for a while and you've been sending emails, this is already set up for you. You're good to go on there. One thing you might want to consider, do you want to have the appointment scheduler on an ActiveDEMAND landing page, or do you want to embed it in a WordPress page? Because the WordPress plugin will allow you to just put appointment schedulers in any page that you want to. So think about whether which one you'd want to do. If your WordPress website is really nice and you've got a really nice template that you want to pop them in, use the WordPress website. But if your design isn't that great, or if you want to whip it out a little bit quicker, the ActiveDEMAND landing page might be the one to go with. You'll need credentials for Zoom or GoToMeeting, so you'll need that login and password to do it. And then when you're activating this for other people, when you get other people that you want to set up appointment schedulers for, you'll need them to log in on the machine that you want to do the authentication. So I'll show you some screenshots of what that looks like a little bit later here. You'll need to set up the salespeople or the calendar owners as employees in your ActiveDEMAND account. So that's under the account settings there. Let's move on to the next slide here. Again, another thing to think about, are you doing single person? Do you have any multi-person schedulers? So my example of a multi-person scheduler was that demo, book a demo one. If they're multi, are you going to do book all? Like, is it booking the whole team? Is it booking by priority? If it's booking by priority, it'll hit the top calendar first, and then if it can't do that calendar, it'll hit the one underneath. Or is it going to be booking round robin, where it tries to evenly select the people that are in the calendars there? If it's a multi-step form, what kind of information do we need? What kind of questions or selections are you going to offer that are important for the client? You will need to get some content for those forms and confirmation pages. And then what kind of reminders should we send? Are you going to send a reminder 1 day before, 1 hour before, et cetera, et cetera? And are you going to be using email or text messaging or both? Because those are both available from ActiveDEMAND. So I need to figure out which one you want to do, and you'll need to whip up some content for those reminders as well. Now, I'm saying like you need to get the content for this. We do have basic content in there for you already, but if you want to make it more personalized or make it make the writing come from the tone of that's more appropriate for your company, you'll need to edit those as well. And then one more thing that you might want to think about is how you track that conversion in Google Analytics, because typically a booked appointment is a really strong signal, and I would really recommend that you definitely track those in Google Analytics and track them as an event. And depending on what kind of event that is, perhaps set them up as a goal so that you can get that back to Google AdWords or Facebook ads or wherever you're advertising. So let's go through setting up a single appointment scheduler. I'm going to go through a lot of slides here. I'm probably going to spend more time talking about setting this up than I actually did setting it up, but I just want to be really complete and kind of cover all my bases here so that if you need to set this up yourself, you can have a little bit more information. Making your own scheduler as a pilot is a really good idea. So if you're wondering who should I set this up for first, should I set it for a customer or myself? Always try to do this stuff for yourself because it's just easier and it's just a better learning experience doing it yourself. So the first thing we're going to do is going to ActiveDEMAND, go into Assets, Appointments, and we're going to create a new appointment calendar. So I created this appointment calendar for myself. You can see I'm already added as an employee. You'll need to do that if you haven't added. Well, you'll definitely be in there. If you're adding the appointment calendar for someone else, you'll definitely have to have them in as an employee. And as you can see here, it's kind of boring. So let's synchronize this thing with my calendar. This is going to connect it to my Google Calendar so that it's aware of what time slots I have available. So I'll go add. I'll put in my email address there. I say it's going to be a Google Calendar. And then I get this screen. Now I need to authenticate it. And this is the part where if you're doing this for other people, you'll either have to do it at their desk or at your desk or something like that. So we'll need to get them to this screen and then get them to authenticate with their username and password for their email. So I go ahead and I authenticate. I choose to authenticate with Adriel Michaud at ActiveDEMAND.com. There's some permissions I need to access, and then I'm authenticated. And then you can go ahead and add GoToMeeting, Zoom, or any other things you want to. Now, incidentally, If this is a calendar with multiple people on it, this is again where priority would be set if I choose to do so. Next, I'm going to check my availability. This is kind of like my standard office hours. And as you can see here, I don't really want to take meetings at lunch because it's lunchtime, so I'll blank those out. But other than that, I've got kind of like an 8 to 5 setup here. You can choose what you want to here. I would say for, like, if you've got holidays or you don't want something to happen at a particular time, for one-off things, I would just put it in your Google Calendar or Microsoft Calendar. Don't put it in this one. You don't need to like log in and edit this thing all the time. You just set up like standard work hours and then use your like book time off in your calendar to keep people from booking on top of it. So this is more like a standard working hours kind of a thing. Next, underneath scheduling, we have a bunch of different options here just on how you want those meetings scheduled. This is, if you're doing this for someone else, this is definitely information you'll need to get from them. So the first one there, prevent clients from scheduling appointments less than in the future and more than in the future. This is just to stop surprises. So you wouldn't want to have, oh, it looks like my day is totally open. Well, I'm going to work on this side project that's been really, really important for me, and then lose track of time and then go find out that you were supposed to be in a client meeting because they booked it 15 minutes in the future, right? So I like to have my appointments be no less than 4 hours in the future. And for the too far in the future, that's just to stop like real silliness from happening because again, it's a little bit too far. Your appointment length is configurable there. Try to make the default appointment length good enough for 90% of meetings. Don't be too overly optimistic, because if you're too overly optimistic on your appointment length and you say it'll take an hour, but they always take an hour and a half, you're gonna start running into overages on your meetings. The other thing that can help with overages is setting that middle one there. Appointments must be at least 15 minutes apart. That's if you don't want them bookended or like right next to each other. I find if I have appointments bookended, I might go 5 minutes over on one meeting, or I might like get out of one meeting and immediately go into the next one with no prep period. And I really prefer to prep for client calls and client meetings. So I like to have 15 minutes in between. Appointments can start that just makes it so that you don't have like a ton of options in there. So you don't want to have like 9:05, 9:10, 9:15. So I like to have just every 30 minutes just to keep it simple. And then as well, you've got some more options there. That schedule go-to meeting for each appointment or each booking, that's one that you can check if you want them all to have that virtual option there as well. And then we get to the scheduling page. So this is going to be an ActiveDEMAND landing page we're going to edit, but inside that ActiveDEMAND landing page is going to be the form. So we're going to go edit that. Keep in mind, you can edit that URL on there so that we can make it a little bit more friendly. So you can see I've chosen Adriel Michaud as the landing page name there, so that's kind of handy. On the page, this is just like a standard boring template one that I've chosen here. This is where you would customize and decorate. Now, this is where you might want to think a little bit more about the psychology of the person who's booking the meeting. If the person is booking the meeting, you want them to attend the meeting. You don't want them to skip it. So there's a couple of things you might want to try on the demo or on the booking page. You might want to put a picture of yourself on there. So you saw that with the last page that I showed you there. I've got my picture on there, and that's because I want people to know they're booking a meeting with a real person, and I don't want them to skip the meeting. So there's one thing you might want to consider. The other thing you might want to consider is including those that kind of imagery or that kind of content in your reminders as well. So again, just a couple little tips to help get people to attend the meetings. In this page, so I would make it a lot prettier. I would put a picture of myself in here, maybe change out some of the content, and then I would go edit the form. And the form is on top of that calendar there. So if you see that calendar, you hover your mouse over it, this little pencil, that gets you into the form. That edits the appointment scheduler form there. This is the form that you would be inserting into WordPress if you just wanted to do the straight to WordPress thing as well. So inside the form, you've got a couple of different options. I like to do a couple of pages on it just to, again, progressively add a couple of questions that people might be more willing to fill out if they see it in 2 pages rather than 1. And if they fill out the first page and I've got their name and email and they don't fill out the second, I still have their name and email. So I get a partial form submit on those ones, and I can still have sales contact them. So that's a good reason why you'd want to have a couple different steps. I like to have a couple of different options in here that help me prep for the meeting and get things set up. Now, the next thing to talk about is the reminders, where those reminders come out of, because that's what's going to also help us get those people into the meeting. And they're actually under lead processing, appointment processing. You see that that top one there, appointment processing. And our default reminders are actually pretty good. There's actually a lot of them in there. This kind of looks like a little bit intimidating if you don't know what it does, but it's actually not that bad. Our first little set of actions there, that's just an email to the attendee and the organizer. We have 2 different paths here because we support with GoToMeeting or without GoToMeeting inside this workflow. So that's the reason why there's 2 paths there. But really, we're just sending an email to the organizer and sending an email to the attendee with all the information they need to join the meeting. And then we have some decisions after that. And the decisions are just trying to find out, is it a day before? Is it an hour before? Has the person canceled? If it's a day before, okay, well, let's send that 1-day reminder. And then once it's an hour before, let's send them the 1-hour reminder. And in this example, I just have emails, but if I wanted to, I could also put text messages in here as well. I really like the 1-hour text message reminder because we often get replies from people saying, oh yeah, good thing, yeah, just remembered. And some people will actually join the meeting from the link that we send them in that text message. So that's the spot I would put that text message reminder, is at that 1-hour point, because that's a really handy spot. So again, the appointment scheduling workflow looks complicated. It's not that bad. I think we've also got a video on it that goes through how it operates and how it works and how to edit it. You'll want to consider taking a look at the emails in here and customizing those as well. So again, this is just a template version that I've got here. We've got on the left-hand side the email that goes out to the attendee. This should be descriptive. It has links for them to add it to their calendar, so they can add it to an Outlook calendar or a Google calendar. They can see appointment details. They've got all the information that's important for them. On the right-hand side, I've got the email to the organizer, and that one should include information that helps them put on the meeting. So it should include what they filled in the form. It should include as much information as possible about the contact. And I also think that the view contact button is super nice on my side, because I like to click on that every once in a while and see what that person is up to and who they are. So again, different emails, and I would really recommend customizing those with the language that's appropriate for your company. Inside those emails, you're going to find these weird like %sign things. There's some dynamic fields in there, and there's a couple of ones that we recommend to make the emails personalized. You can use things like the day, let people know about the start time, the duration, the time zone if it's necessary. You can dump all the form fields that they filled in there. I like that one for confirming not only to the attendee what they filled in, because sometimes they forget what they wanted the meeting to be about, but also for the organizer as well. So an example sentence I would use in an email might be, hey, contact first name, hey Bob, you have an appointment with name Adriel. So that's an easy way to make these things very nice and personalized and move them forward. I'm using GoToMeeting as my example in here, but again, this could be Zoom just as easily. So make sure, like, don't delete the dynamic text, just use it to personalize. You can delete it if you want to, but we find some customers get in there and like, what all this %sign stuff, and they get rid of it, and they lose the personalization that's capable inside these things. And the last thing you should do with your personal meeting booker is test it. Go in there, fill in the information, try a test booking, see if it books in your calendar, see what it looks like, because that's where you might see, oh, this content that I wrote doesn't really match for how I want this to be done. So you learn that by verifying yourself. Next, I want to talk about larger deployments, some of the things you need to think about when doing this at a bigger scale. Doing one is pretty easy from your own computer because you know what's going on, you're learning as you go along. But doing in a big kind of company or a bigger group is difficult because there's multiple people, multiple personalities involved, and there's a little bit of change management that you have to put into place. So some of the things you might want to think about: first, set up all your salespeople as employees in ActiveDEMAND. If you've got 5 of them, that's going to be easy. If you got 50, it's going to take some time. Make sure you get a list of all their email addresses too, because when you go to add their calendars, you'll need to use those. Create, and again, this is process-wise. Create, get approval on page, reminder, and confirmation page content. You may need to get approval from management. You might need to get approval from sales. It depends on the organization and what you need to do. Think about how you're going to authenticate the calendars, the people with the calendars. They're probably not going to give you their username and password, and they shouldn't, because that wouldn't be super secure. So are you going to just have them come by your desk? Are you going to go to theirs? Are you going to do a virtual call where you do it together? Are you going to have them log into ActiveDEMAND and authenticate on their calendar? So this answer will vary depending on how your company's set up, and you'll need to work out how you're going to do that. In terms of the calendar details that you need to pull up, you'll need to gather specifics like what office hours are they going to hold, how long are their meetings, do you bookend or leave breathing room between, what's the min or max delay before a meeting is allowed, do you need to add in video conferencing, and that kind of thing. So the reason why I have a slide like this in this presentation is so that you can use it if you need to present this internally at your company or at your with a client of yours. Change management is probably the most important thing with a large organization with multiple different departments. So you'll need to think about how you're going to do it. And one of the ways that we've seen this be really successful is running a pilot with really savvy, if you're doing this for sales, with salespeople. So if you have really savvy salespeople, pick those people out, run a pilot with them so set up calendars for those people, and then analyze how they benefited and use that to sell the idea to less savvy salespeople. A couple things to think about as you're talking with them: get and use quotes. So if they said, I didn't think it was going to be that useful, but man, I'm using it like all the time, and whenever customers self-book meetings with me, it saves me like 15 minutes every time. Capture those quotes, because what you're going to do, you need to be able to use some of this information to communicate the benefits throughout the organization. What's going to happen is some people are going to just drag their heels and not want to adopt the new tech. They're going to want to keep doing it the old inefficient way, and you need to convince them that this is in their best interests. And the way to do that, one of the best ways to do that, is to get quotes from those savvy salespeople on how it's saving them time. You may need to work with management. So again, part of change management, working with the managers that manage the people that you're setting appointment schedulers up for. So work with those guys. And one really easy win, and it's easy because it's kind of passive once you have it set up, is setting up that book a meeting with me link in everyone's signatures. And the reason why this is a fantastic thing to do, you just have to do it once. So you go edit the salesperson's signature, you put in that book a meeting with me link in there, and then you wait. They're going to send some emails. They're not thinking about the appointment scheduler, and it's going to happen. A customer or a prospect is going to book a meeting with that salesperson using that book a meeting with me link, and they're going to see how easy it is. Oh, I didn't have to do anything. The customer just booked a meeting. It showed up on my calendar. I got all the relevant information I needed. I didn't have to play phone tag. I didn't have to offer up meeting spots to them. It just happened, and it just worked. And that's when they're going to really buy into this and keep pushing along. And then just a training bit that you'll have to do with the people you deploy the calendars with. If they have holidays or out of office, they need to book it in their calendar. They need to book that time off so that it doesn't show up as an option when people want to book those days. So holidays, if Monday is a holiday, make sure that the people who have appointment schedulers have that time booked off in their calendar. Finally, if you want to learn more about appointment schedulers and really more that ActiveDEMAND can do, definitely go over to learn.activedemand.com. We have a learning management system there with certification that helps people learn more about the platform and learn more about specific topics, just like appointment scheduling. So I think that's all I have for you today.